Is Throne and Liberty dead? Is the dissatisfaction with the game just too high in this situation? Let's find out.
So why is everyone leaving Throne and Liberty? It's been nearly 3 months since the global launch of the game. Now it feels like the perfect time to have a look on its current state. If you've
Feels like it launched honestly yesterday. Also, this graph, look at it. A 300k launch, respectable, respectable. And then it just wavered out and now it's at 50, 60k players. That's honestly not bad. This is what happens with most MMOs nowadays. This happens with most progression, character-driven games that people play. I think this is normal. And these numbers, yeah, sure. This is like an 80% player loss. Actually, how much is this? What's the peak? So roughly 300 peak. Yeah, this is an 80% player loss. In 3 months, not honestly even that bad. I'm surprised that it took so long to get here even. Considering how many small-ish problems Throne and Liberty had, and how many huge problems, aka playing with daggers, and then using the button that teleports you behind enemy and your camera doesn't switch was, and things like that. Throne and Liberty could easily see the numbers slowly start to go up if they fix the combat, and they fixed a lot of things. Like, the UI is not bad, but at the same time, God knows no one knows how to properly use it, okay? The UI tutorial needs a UI tutorial.
checked out the Steam charts recently, you have probably noticed a pattern. The player base has been consistently declining. Each week we are losing 10 to 15% of the player base. Of course, it's a niche game and it's also normal that players leave after the initial launch hype. But the problem is, this trend doesn't seem to stop. So what is really driving players away? To dig deeper, I decided to gather perspectives from all kinds of different players. I put up a post on Reddit asking for your feedback. Spoke with people from casual guilds, from hardcore PvP guilds, and even players who've already quit the game. From all these perspectives, I identified the key issues that players currently have with the game. And I will explain those problems with my experience with over 1000 hours in the game. And of course, I'm doing all of this because I love the game. I want it to succeed. But for this, we just have to talk about the problems. So the first thing everyone was talking about was the combat. Yes, they did a lot of improvements from when the game was initially released.
Yeah, this took me out of Throne and Liberty pretty strong. Again, combat is going to be probably the biggest thing because it felt clunky. Now, admittedly, 2 weeks into the game, when I was like still hardly playing a little bit, they did improve it, and the combat did feel more fluent. There's a reason World of Warcraft has, global cooldown timers on abilities and cast bars on abilities, okay? I'm just saying there's a reason for that, boyos. And that reason is pretty important.
And yes, it feels pretty decent in small scale PvP and also in PvE. But the problem starts in large scale PvP, where everything often feels so incredible clunky. And there are two problems that have been mentioned from you over and over again. Okay, problem number one. Everyone noticed this after his first large-scale PvP fight, and that's just the incredible bad targeting. And this is just something that needs to
Wait, what? This is even a... Dude. The real problem in PvP is the fact that you're supposed to be a bunch of people. You're supposed to stack one AoE skill with a bow, and that's her story, okay?
be on the top of their priority list, because this is so frustrating to play. You just want to throw your PC out of the window sometimes. So even if you have the perfect settings, it just feels so incredibly clunky. And for a tap target MMO, not being able to consistently and easily select targets is just not acceptable. Okay, problem number 2, and this has been mentioned by everyone I was talking to, and has been also mentioned by you guys plenty of times on Reddit, and that's just the sheer amount of CC that's currently in the game. And here the best example is of course the tornadoes from the bow. This skill alone just kills all the fun of GVGs and large scale PvP, especially for melee players. And in combination with the targeting system, it's often such a clunky and frustrating experience. Either you are getting knocked up consistently in the air, or the players that you are trying to hit are getting knocked up. And yes, you can itemize against it. But in this clip you see I have 580 collision resistance and I'm still getting knocked up into the air 4 times in a row. Like, this just makes you want to just stand up and jump out of the window. And yes, there are currently a lot of things really bad and they are really hard to fix. But here you can just simply remove the skill specialization of the tornado. No one likes it and it doesn't benefit the game at all. And the game experience for everyone would be just better if this.
Yep, well, this is what's gonna happen with any game that's centered around large scale PvP. And this game is exclusively centered around large scale PvP, by the way, if you haven't noticed. Like, everything involving this game is PvP focused, pretty much. You have no chance of not doing anything if you're not doing PvP stuff. Because this is actually a kind of smart way to push people into paying to win, because pay to win exists in this game. And that is by making it PvP, because there is no amount of skill that's gonna make it that you are gonna be better than someone with who has paid to win in this game. It's pretty much Diablo Immortal.
The skill specialization would be deleted. But besides that, there are just currently so many CC spots in the game, and the problem with that is that the visualization of the CC is often really bad. And that's just really frustrating, because your brain is not realizing that you are actually CC'd. So if you're in a fight and you're getting CC'd and you don't know why you can't move, then it just feels overall really clunky. Your brain needs to immediately understand that you are CC'd. I have no clue how they can fix that, but it's a huge problem. So the combat in general is really not bad, but when it comes to targeting and the CC, there just needs to be a lot of improvement. And some of them are just really easy, and it would help just to reduce a lot of the current clunkiness. Okay, so the next thing we have to talk about comes up every week multiple times on Reddit, and that's just the toxicity in dungeons. So this
the toxicity in general is a problem in every game.
Has been a problem since the release of TL. So either by flaming people how bad they are, or telling.
Well, actually, I guess in a game like this it's gonna be harder, because you see, Throne in Liberty is very punishing. You can't really do something called a respec that easily, even though you can use every item in the game no matter what happens, because item usage determines class usage, okay? And you can't really switch. So if people are gonna shit on you if you're not using a meta build, okay? If you're not using a meta build, well, tough luck, asshole. People are gonna hate you. That's just how it is. Even though the meta builds are not actually that much better than non-meta builds in a lot of cases. It's just the fact that someone popular said that this is a meta thing now, and all the sheeple are instantaneously like, "Ah, yes, Slay Queen, yes!" People are stupid. That's kind of the point I'm trying to get here. There's a lot of non-meta builds in this game that outperform meta builds, by the way, in a lot of things. And people just don't know about it because no one's talking about it. And no one's gonna admit that they are playing the verse thing, and it's hilarious. And you can't respec easily in this game, so you're double screwed. It's hilarious.
Them how dare they come into a new dungeon without watching a guide up front, or just by simply kicking people out of the group as soon as they made one mistake. And all of that is obvious.
That does make sense. I mean, this is, by the way, not really toxicity. Hey, listen, if you're not gonna respect everyone else's time and expect to be carried in a dungeon or a raid or with a boss or whatever, fuck you. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're better than everyone else, that you can just go in there, do nothing, get the rewards, and ruin everyone else's experience? No. Off with your goddamn stupid head. That's what I say. Dude, if you're gonna go into a raid and you can't even be asked to look at a guide one time, That is just pathetic, okay? Doing one mistake, well, if you joined a group with the name Know What You Do, have done this before, and you're a fuck up, then yeah, expect to be kicked. I have no pity for these people who have no respect for other people's time, okay? They deserve to be kicked, okay? Learn on your own time, not on mine time, loser.
Obviously not nice. And this is what really kills it for a lot of players, especially new players. We could now simply say, oh, the community of Stolen Liberty is just really bad and toxic. But I think that's just a really stupid take, and it's just simply not true. It's as stupid as saying that League of Legends players are more toxic than Counter-Strike players, or
I mean, one of them is objectively going to be more toxic.
vice versa. In every game we have a lot of toxic players, but certain games make us just more toxic due to certain systems, mechanics, game features or missing elements in the game. And then certain games can make the nicest person really toxic and rage, because certain elements in the game have just bad design. Okay, but in other MMOs people are not so toxic in dungeons. So why are people getting so toxic in TL? One big problem is that the mechanics can sometimes feel a little complicated, because the game doesn't explain the mechanics at all. And often everyone has a certain job, and if one person fades, this can be already devastating. And it's always really hard to understand what you did wrong or what you did right, because so many things are just happening at the same time. It's just really easy to see when you know how it works, but at the beginning it's just really hard to get. So this is already not a perfect design.
True.
But in addition, I think a big problem is that we have guides for all of those dungeons before they get even released. So people like me just played in Korea and then made guides for those dungeons before they're even out. So what is happening then is that some players will watch those guides and others won't. And then the players who watch the guides complain on day one about why others don't know how the boss works and why they didn't watch a video. This creates an even more toxic environment.
Again, you can just watch the video and completely avoid this. Listen, this guy's probably German, okay? Or Swedish, based on the level of inbredness. Okay, listen. They're gonna be like this, okay? They literally live to get themselves stabbed on the street by someone who has never done anything wrong and is of doctor and whatnot in life, okay? You're never gonna convince a Swede or a German that people who don't do anything aren't bad. Okay, so these people who don't try, you're just supposed to allow them to be shit for no reason. That is the Swedish and German way of life.
Of course, this happened now for all 1-star and 2-star dungeons, and it will again happen for all the 3-star dungeons. So the question is, what can they do? I think they just have to explain the mechanics somehow in the game. That would help so much. Give the players the possibility to understand the mechanics in the game. Some nice animation, some pictures on how to move and so on. I think that would really help a lot here and take away a lot from this toxic environment. Because people could just quickly understand in an in-game guide.
That doesn't change anything. That just will filter out the worst players and make them quit the game, honestly.
What they actually did wrong. So the next topic we just have to talk about are the dimensional trials and the runes. So both systems that just have been recently added. So the dimensional trials are just your mythic plus-like system where you can have
The hell are those things?
up to 30 difficulties of a dungeon.
Ooh.
And you do those trials to get your runes. Well, these are just stones you can put into your weapons and accessories, which are important for your current endgame progression. So it doesn't matter who I asked or where I looked for feedback, just everyone was saying something negative about the implementation. Okay, so I love the idea of runes. They just give you a lot of options to customize your character. And I also really love challenging PvE content. And I really don't want to flame here on the developers or on the game. But this implementation is one of the worst implementations I've ever seen from systems that are actually really great. Okay, what do I mean by that? So first of all, you are implementing a system with 30 tiers of difficulty. And of course you want to give the bosses new mechanics. That's of course really important and totally fine. But instead of changing the mechanics of the boss throughout the full 30 tiers, you give them all these new mechanics by tier 5. So the first 2 tiers are super easy. And then you give all the new mechanics the players from tier 3 to tier 5. But if you have master tier 5, then it's always the same until tier 30. And you could see how the majority of the groups were struggling heavily already on tier 3. And
this is insane. What do you mean this is the split from... This is such an insanely moronic split. Holy. Wow, I had no idea.
Of course super demotivating if you have 30 tiers and you struggle already on tier 3. And again, remember, there's no in-game explanation and it's really hard to understand what you actually have to do. What is that doing? Right, it creates toxicity. You have a nice system here with 30 tiers, you have nice mechanics from the bosses, and you could spread
Wait, how the hell is this creating toxicity?
them out through all of those tiers here, giving players more and more mechanics with each tier. Players would be able to clear more and more tiers and feel a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. Wow, today I mastered 4 more tiers in this dungeon. Wow, the people I did the dungeon with were so great. People would just feel happy. And that would be a great design. But instead the game overloads the players with new mechanics way too early. People just get frustrated and quit the game. If they want to make those systems more accessible for everyone,
I mean, it is an unbelievably bad system to do this, but he's not right about one thing, and that is that this makes people quit the game. Because, you see, this is kind of a stupid distribution of things, obviously, because this kind of filters out the players faster. But the reality is, if tier 1 to tier 5 is 0 mechanics, and then you get 1 mechanic on tier 5, when you get to level 5, you know, it's the same as this, but it's less compressed, okay? Then it will make people who are incapable of doing stuff just, you know, climb slightly higher than previously and then quit. Effectively, it would be, if someone's quitting because of this, his proposed system would make that person quit just like a day slower or something like that. It just makes a lot more redundant nothingness in the game. So it doesn't really solve anything by just spacing them out. That's just reality. But it is stupid that you do it like this, because this just doesn't make any sense.
With new mechanics way too early. People just get frustrated and quit the game. If they want to make those systems more accessible for everyone, they need to make here definitely changes in the future. Okay, now let's talk about runes, which are currently just a huge part of your endgame progression. With the most recent update they just released, you can farm runes now also decently in other ways than just the dimensional trials. But if you have tried it, you will quickly notice that the rune gain is really low. Until you level your runes to level 60, Amazon will already release level 80 runes. So when it comes to farming runes, the best way is by far still dimensional trials. And if you want to stay competitive as a PvP player, you need runes. But the only way to effectively farm runes is hard PvE content. And the changes they made with this patch were already really good and going into the right direction. But that's just not enough. A PvP player should be able to farm runes just with PvP content. So many PvP players just quit the game because they are forced to do PvE content. And that's just not some dungeon farming. This is really hard.
If someone is only playing a game for PvP, honestly, they are a problem for the game. That is just the reality. I know this probably sounds harsh, because it is harsh. Not gonna lie, it is harsh. But someone who just plays PvP in a game is actually a problem for the game. If you cannot make that person interact with PvE stuff, then those players are almost worthless from a game dev standpoint. Sure, they add a number, but you know, they will never actually make your game better. They will never contribute to anything that makes your game better. They're just PvP players. You need to have the ability to make people who are only PvP to do PvE things, because that's how you grow your game properly. And if someone quits because, oh, the only thing they can do in life is not PvP, well, shit, suck, boy.
PvE content. I think it's good that this whole rune farming is a grind, which is totally okay, but the content needs to be fun for the players. For PvE players, grinding for weeks or months in hard dungeons is fine. But forcing a PvP player to do that is of course not okay. They of course need PvP content where they can farm those runes. And this farming method should be as effective as going two-dimensional trials. This should be just complete alternative, and players could do what they like to do to farm those runes, and everyone could be happy. Okay, so don't get me wrong here, like these systems are just really great and I just love both of them. But the implementation of those are just so bad, and we just really quickly need here changes. And let's just really hope that this is not too late. Because I know for a fact that this is killing the fun for so many players.
I think this is completely wrong. Okay, so first of all, the amount of people who only do PvP in any game in the modern day is so fucking low. Chances are, if you're an only PvPer, you're probably playing Fortnite or COD instead of this. Jesus, because you're probably trying to be competitive. And most people like me who have literally hit the menstrual wall, aka being 30-year-old males. What? Males are women too. Something. Hey, he would agree with me. Okay, listen. You know, when you hit the wall, you stop caring about being competitive. So you are gonna never, as a PvE player, you're never gonna go into PvP serious. And if there's any kind of serious reward, a daily reward or weekly reward tied behind PvP, you're gonna want to fucking not do it unless it's super casual friendly. Okay, and for PvE players, again, almost no real PvP players exist that only do PvP in Throne and Liberty for only Throne and Liberty. Some do, but you know, they're like a handful probably. Now, admittedly, there can be people who are mainly PvE, but you know, it is a problem if you're gonna tell PvP players, hey, okay, now 50% your progression is tied by the currently hardest raid boss in the game. Good luck, buckaroo. Yeah, that kind of sucks, but that's probably not what is happening.
Okay, now we have to talk about guild, alliances, and PvP. So in Throne Liberty, the major PvP content is for sure large-scale PvP. So a couple of times a week you have GVGs, so Rift Zones and Boonstones, and then you have with your alliance world boss fights every day and castle sieges every 2 weeks. From my point of view, the best content in Throne of Liberty is by far the GVGs. Of course, they have also some problems, but overall they are really fun. But the problem is here that you more or less need a hardcore PvP guild to have good PvP.
I was gonna say, the only way you say that this is fine in a pay-to-win game is, well, if you're in a hardcore guild.
Of course, if you're not in a hardcore PvP guild, you can have some small scale PvP in arenas or some fights in the open world dungeons. But if you want to have good large scale PvP, which is just the major content in this game, there is nothing you can do without a competitive hardcore guild. But if you are then in such a hardcore guild and you are attending to all of those events, then it can quickly feel like a second job. And I saw a lot of posts regarding that on Reddit as well. But if you want to have good PvP, competitive PvP, this is just the only way you have. So,
by the way, look at this. This is crossbow plus staff, aka ignite thing where you throw out ignites, if I'm not mistaken. This was not a meta build. Not a meta build in the slightest. But when people started figuring it out that this is good, everything did. And people couldn't change to it. This is hilarious.
Smaller guilds.
But all in all, the balance at least is pretty good in Throne Liberty as far as I can tell. So, you know, it doesn't matter. But, you know, previously this was not a meta build and people got shit on for not using a meta build. Oh, wait, this is not staff and crossbow. This is bow and staff. Oof. So this is not that build. But yeah, there are so many builds that people got shit on, and then turns out, wait a minute, they're the actual meta builds. It's just so funny.
Won't get any good GVGs and will be completely destroyed in all other open world PvP events. So what do you do if you want to have good PvP, but you don't want to join a hardcore PvP guild?
Kick rocks. Literally nothing you can do about that. If you're gonna play Throne and Liberty, you need to do that anyway. In any case, that was Grobs. Throne and Liberty, not even dead, boys. 10 out of 10. You know, and now the combat is better. Honestly, I think he missed completely everything that people should know about coming back to the game. Like, is the desync gone? Is the lag gone? Is flight form actually fucking usable now in a lot of cases? Does it bug out? You know, the key bindings. How? There's so many things. There's so many things. Also, wait, what is this? How to spear in PvE? Holy shit, did spear get added? That's cool. Everyone loves spears. Anyway, 10 out of 10. Bye.